Jesus is indeed a friend that will never betray you, never leave you, never forsake you. Even worse, if you want to compare yourself, greater if you just want to accept it. Did you catch what I said there? I mean, yes, we should strive to be like Jesus, and by the power of the Spirit we can walk like Jesus and look like Jesus. But if you're looking at Jesus and trying to compare yourself and what you can do, that's not the way you want to look at Jesus, because all it'll do is make you feel about 1 inch tall. But if you look at him realizing who he is and what he can do for you, then that comparison can be great, because Jesus isn't just someone who will be our friend and not betray us and leave us. He's someone who will approach us, call us to himself, and be our friend when he knows we are going to betray him, when we are going to forsake him, when we are going to be unfaithful to him, when we are going to be dishonest and scared and frustrated and angry without cause. Well, I've never been angry without cause. If you've ever been angry at God, you have been angry without cause. You may have thought you had cause. You may have felt you had cause. You may have even had a cause to be angry. But when you directed it at him, you got off the mark, because he's not at fault. It wasn't him. Question: what would have happened with Judas had he not killed himself? Somebody asked if the disciples would have killed him for betraying Jesus. I guess that seems like a pretty understandable question. If Peter had found him before Jesus came up out of that grave, I don't know. He cut that guy's ear off. Who knows what some of those guys might have done before Jesus came out of that grave. And I know some people feel like, oh, well, that's a silly question, because it couldn't have been any different. It was prophesied what Judas would do. Judas was, he was stuck. He was done. He didn't have a choice. He was picked. Jesus was chosen before the foundation of the world to lay down his life, and Judas was picked before the foundation of the world to be the one to betray him. So say some. I disagree. Now, do I think Judas was going to betray him? Yeah, absolutely. Do I think Jesus knew that when he called him? 100%. I don't think Judas didn't have a choice. I think it's more that God picked the one person in that area at that time who he knew would not only betray Jesus, but would do it for 30 pieces of silver so that the prophecy would be true. See, he couldn't have picked me if I'd have been alive there, because I wouldn't have held out for 30. I realized that. I got to thinking about that last night. I was listening to an album that I came across that I hadn't heard before, and I was listening through it. It's a really good album called Grace. And there's a song in there where the guy talks about how Judas betrayed you for 30 pieces of silver. I did it for less. Peter denied you 3 times. I've done it way more. And I can relate to every bit of that, because that's me. I betrayed him because I just didn't feel like it. I betrayed him just because somebody might look at me funny if I say what I really think. The disciples wouldn't have killed Judas. Yeah, it was said that he was going to betray Jesus for 30 pieces of silver. It was even prophesied about the potter's field. But that didn't mean that Judas had to die the way he did, that he had to kill himself. I believe I believe that the answer to the question of what would have happened to Judas had he not committed suicide is the same thing that happens to us if we don't run away when we've messed up, when we have betrayed him, because you have, when we've been unfaithful, because we have, when we've been materialistic and chosen things of this world over the kingdom, when we've gotten mad because God didn't do it our way. Because there are some who believe that Judas was just trying to force Jesus' hand, that he wasn't really betraying him, that he just wanted Jesus to be forced into the position of stepping up as the Messiah. When they come to arrest him, he'll conquer. I don't think that's true, but maybe it is. Either way, he still messed up because God wasn't doing it that way, and he tried to force God to do it his way. If he hadn't have run off and done that, when Jesus came up out of that ground, we could have had something even bigger than a Thomas moment. That moment where Jesus went, you don't have to run away from me. I knew you were going to do it when I called your name. Come here. Come here. You're mine. I love you. I called you. I am your friend. That's closer than a brother. I'm your father who adopted you and chose you. I'm your brother who will share his inheritance and his firstborn rights with you. I am the sustainer of your life and the meter of your need. And it's none of it is based on what you did for me or whether or not you earned it. It's based entirely on my love for you. It's not even based on your love for me. You don't have to love me as much as I love you or I quit. You know, that's how we treat people. Oh, I've poured out, and you're not giving back, I'm done. God poured out his blood. And if you will stop running from him and run to him, he will accept you no matter how many times you have betrayed him, no matter how many times you have messed up, no matter what you have done wrong, no matter what's been done to you. You can come. What will happen? You'll be forgiven. You will be restored. You will be made whole. You will be healed. And your mess will become something God can use to bring him glory. And people who doubt know that they won't be kicked away because Thomas said, my Lord and my God. And people who turn their back on God know that they can come back because Jesus told us a story about a prodigal. And had Judas not done it, people would have an example in Scripture that you can do the worst thing imaginable, come to your senses and realize I can still go to God because of who Jesus is and what Jesus did. It's not about you. It's about him. And that's a good thing. Because I would never, ever choose a friend that I knew from the jump was going to stab me in the back and steal from me for 2 or 3 years before he did. But Jesus did. And it wasn't just so that he could get to that cross. Because maybe Judas wasn't the only one. But for 2 or 3 years, Judas was loved by Jesus and knew it. But he threw it away. God loves us as we are, not as we should be. He proved it by dying. You get a taste of it, grab on. Don't throw it away. Don't run. Don't let shame and guilt and condemnation tell you that you can't come to Jesus. I've let him down. Yeah, so have I. Over and over and again. He will pick you up. You don't have to pick yourself up. He did it on that cross. That's love. That's a friend. I am the betrayer. I've turned my back over and over again. I've denied him. I've run. I've fled. I've deserted him. I am Judas and worse. So are we all. And his love never faltered. During the Last Supper, he served Judas as much as he served Peter and Andrew and John and James. Judas had a chance. Judas had a choice. So do you. Choose wisely. Choose Jesus. He chose you.